Have you ever stopped to think that the Ten Commandments are not just ancient rules? Could there be something more behind these words that many consider simple and know by heart? Have you ever wondered if there's something deeper hidden in each of them? Something that could change the way you view life today and even transform your faith journey? In today's video, we're going to reveal the secret truth behind the Ten Commandments that few people know. Get ready to discover teachings that go beyond the moral and ethical lessons we've been taught since childhood. Stay with us, because you will be surprised by what is hidden in these words. Are you ready for this journey of discovery? What do the commandments really have to tell us? Keep watching and prepare yourself for something incredible, but before we continue, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. And if you believe these teachings can transform lives, like this video, and share it so more people can discover this story and be edified. In a distant time, the people of Israel were living in a reality of challenges and uncertainties. They were bound to slavery in Egypt and longed for freedom. But what no one expected was that their liberation would be marked by something much deeper than just leaving an oppressive country. When Moses, chosen by God, ascended the mountain, he didn't just receive instructions for the people's physical journey, but also for a spiritual revolution that would change the course of human history. The moment of receiving the Ten Commandments was not simple. The people were gathered, observing the clouds and thunder as they awaited Moses' return. They hardly knew that at the end of this journey, their lives would be transformed by eternal teachings. But what many fail to realize is that these commandments are not just superficial rules. They carry profound symbolism about how humans should behave, not only with society, but with God and themselves. The first thing that stands out in the Ten Commandments is their divine nature. They are not just human guidelines. They act like a mirror, revealing the deepest principles of the relationship between God and humankind. Each commandment is a lesson on what truly matters: love, respect, justice, dignity, humility, and above all, faith. If we look closely, we can see that the commandments are not only telling us what not to do, but also inviting us to reflect on what is truly important in our lives. Have you ever stopped to think about the first commandment? You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. It may seem simple at first, but what does it really mean for us? What does it mean to love God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind? Many believe this refers only to faith, but if we look closely, we see that this commandment goes beyond a simple religious devotion. It calls us to give our whole being to God, to trust fully in His guidance, and to live a life aligned with His principles. This love is not just about words, but about actions that reflect our total surrender to Him. What few people know is that by living this first commandment, we are creating a deep bond with God. This bond is not just a spiritual relationship, but also something that directly affects the way we relate to others. When we put God at the center of our lives, we are called to act according to His love, to demonstrate His goodness, and to live in harmony with His creation. But do we truly live this fully in our daily lives? Have we given God the place He deserves? This reflection leads us to the second commandment. You shall not make for yourself a carved image. This commandment may seem outdated to many today, but in reality, it holds a profound secret about the things we truly value. It's not just about idol worship or objects, but about reflecting on what we prioritize in our lives. What do we put first? What is taking the place of God in our hearts? Often, our pursuit of success, material possessions, and recognition can become a form of modern-day idolatry. This commandment invites us to reflect on what we are truly worshiping and to turn back to the one true God. Now, you might be wondering, how can these commandments help us in our daily lives amidst the challenges of modern life? They seem so far from our reality, But when we look more deeply, we'll see that these commandments are timeless. They don't just speak of an ancient people, but of principles that apply to all of us, at all times. By following these commandments, we are actually following a recipe for inner peace, harmony with the world, and true happiness. But what could the third commandment teach us? Could it also contain a deep lesson that many overlook? What can it reveal about our relationship with truth and the words we use every day? Stay tuned, because in this video, we will dive even deeper and uncover what the third commandment really has to teach us. Get ready for more surprising revelations about the true wisdom hidden in God's words. Did you know that every time you like a video like this, you're helping spread the teachings of the Bible to more people? Subscribe to continue being part of this mission. When we think about words, we often don't give them the weight they truly carry. But the third commandment, "You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain," invites us into deep reflection about the power of what we speak and more. Specifically, about what it means to treat God's name with reverence. This commandment goes far beyond simply avoiding the misuse or irreverent use of God's name. It teaches us an important lesson about the sacredness of the words we use, and by understanding this principle, we see that it also points us towards respect and seriousness in everything we say, not just about God, but about others and ourselves. Imagine for a moment what our society would be like if we truly took care not to make empty promises or speak words without commitment. What would human relationships be like if everyone honored the words they spoke? By teaching us to revere His name, God is inviting us to be more conscious of the power words have to build or destroy, to heal or harm. The words that come out of our mouths have the power to influence not only our lives, but the lives of those around us. And when we say something in God's name, it carries an even greater weight. When we take God's name in vain, we're not just misusing a religious symbol, but also disregarding the impact our words have on the spiritual world and on the people around us. Have you ever thought about how we use the word God in our daily lives? Often we say His name casually, without considering the implications. God is so much more than an empty word or an expression without meaning. He is the source of all life and the reason there is meaning in everything we do. The commandment, then, is not just asking us to respect God's name. It's calling us to a deep respect for that which holds eternal value. However, the lesson goes beyond the word itself. This commandment also teaches us about the power of our promises. When we swear or promise something, especially in God's name, it is a demonstration of commitment, of our seriousness in fulfilling what we say. Have you noticed that often our words are spoken in the heat of the moment without fully understanding what they really mean? The third commandment reminds us of the importance of being responsible for what we say. It teaches us to be more careful and to reflect before acting. It challenges us to be people of our word, who keep our commitments and honor the promises we make, especially when it comes to something as important as our faith. The next commandment, the fourth, comes as an invitation to a rest that goes beyond the physical. By saying, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy," God calls us to something profound. This commandment is not just about physical rest, but about spiritual rest, which reconnects us with the source of life. When we take time to step away from our daily concerns and focus on God, we are actually giving our spirits the opportunity to renew themselves. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's easy to lose sight of the meaning of genuine rest. And that's why this commandment carries a much greater lesson than just not working on the Sabbath. But how does this rest connect us more deeply with God? And how can it transform our lives? What is the true essence of sanctifying a day of rest? What does it have to teach us about how we can live in harmony with our Creator? Stay with us, because next we will explore the true meaning of spiritual rest and how it applies to our modern lives. Get ready for a journey of discoveries Before we continue, let me say that each like you leave is a sign that this message is important. Subscribe to continue receiving more transformative content. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. This simple command, found in the fourth commandment, holds more than it seems at first glance. Most of us understand the Sabbath as a day of rest, a day in which we must stop working and take time to relax. But is that all this command truly means? Or is there something deeper behind this command that God gives us? Rest is not just a physical pause. It is an opportunity to restore our spirit and our connection with the Creator. In today's world, it seems like we are always racing against time, never having enough hours in the day, and often rest is the one thing we struggle to enjoy. The frantic pace of our lives leads us to a constant pursuit of productivity, causing us to neglect the importance of rest, not only physical, but also emotional and spiritual. God, by instituting the Sabbath, knew that humans would need time to recharge and reconnect with the divine purpose of their existence. Spiritual rest, according to the fourth commandment, is not just a break from work. It is a sacred time to stop, reflect, and remember who God is and what He has done for us. The Sabbath is a reminder that no matter how much we work and seek success, our true source of strength and rest comes from God. This commandment teaches us that true peace and renewal come when we stop to rest in His presence. It is in this rest that we find the renewal our souls so desperately need. Now imagine for a moment that you could stop everything for a day, just to focus on your relationship with God. No commitments, no distractions, no external pressures. What could this do for you? What could this do for your relationship with the Creator? The fourth commandment teaches us the importance of putting everything into perspective, reminding us that by resting in God, we are not just seeking physical relief, but also spiritual renewal. The commandment does not simply require that we stop working, but that we dedicate time to something deeper. Time to reflect on our lives, to meditate on the Scriptures, to pray, and to seek His presence. This is a rest that goes beyond the mere absence of activity. It is a time when we are invited to step away from the world and focus on spiritual things. And by doing so, we become more aware of our true dependence on God. He does not call us to rest only from work, but to rest in Him. And it is precisely in this moment of rest that the greatest revelations often occur. When we stop and listen, God has the opportunity to speak to us in a clearer way, without the busyness and distractions of everyday life. It is when we quiet ourselves that His voice becomes more present and noticeable. So, what does this teach us about the purpose of the Sabbath and spiritual rest? It shows us that rest is not a waste of time, but an investment in our soul. Now that we understand the spiritual impact of rest, we can begin to see the depth of the next commandment, which calls us to reflect on our relationships with others. The fifth commandment, honor your father and mother, invites us to honor those who have played a crucial role in our upbringing. But does this mean merely respect, or does it go beyond that? Let's explore how this commandment is essential for the health of our family relationships and also for society as a whole. What secret does it reveal about the structure of a successful and harmonious life? Stay with us as we will uncover the true importance of honoring our parents, a principle that goes far beyond obedience. Honor your father and mother. A seemingly simple commandment that carries profound weight. When God asks us to honor our parents, He is not merely instructing us to be polite or follow their orders. This commandment holds the key to understanding the importance of our family relationships, which have far-reaching implications for our personal and social lives. Why then does God place such significant emphasis on our relationship with our parents? What lies behind this directive that appears so straightforward but is layered with meaning? Honoring our parents is not merely about respecting familial authority. It is a foundational principle for building healthy character and a just society. When this commandment was given, society was structured around families as the cornerstone of social organization. Honoring parents was vital for preserving values, traditions, and stability. Today, even in a vastly different world, this principle remains essential. Our families are still the first place we learn to live in community, respect differences, and care for one another. Honoring parents involves more than obedience. It demands recognition and gratitude. When we honor our parents, we acknowledge their contributions to our lives, whether through teachings, care, or sacrifices made on our behalf. This act of honor fosters humility and thankfulness within us, bringing blessings to our own lives. The Bible promises those who honor their parents the reward of long and prosperous lives. This is not a reward for a single act of respect, but the fruit of a lifestyle that fosters harmony and blessings. But what about when parents are not deserving of honor? How do we navigate this commandment when our relationship with them is strained or even toxic? The commandment does not require us to idealize or excuse harmful behavior. Instead, it calls us to recognize the role our parents have played in our lives. When this is difficult, we must seek healing for our hearts, learning to forgive and release resentment. Honoring in such circumstances can be a step toward personal healing and the restoration of family relationships. This commandment also invites reflection on the concept of authority and its role in shaping our identities. Honoring our parents teaches us to respect authority more broadly, whether in society, the church, or other areas of life. By learning to honor those God has placed in positions of authority over us, we develop the ability to approach situations with respect, even in challenging circumstances. Now that we have explored the importance of honoring our parents, we arrive at a critical juncture, the protection of life. The sixth commandment, "You shall not kill," extends beyond the physical act of taking a life to encompass issues of safeguarding the dignity and value of human existence. Does the protection of life go further than we might imagine? This commandment directly connects to upholding respect for life and the inherent worth of every human being. Let us delve deeper into the profound impact of this commandment and how it applies to many aspects of our daily lives. Thou shalt not kill. A clear and direct commandment, but how can we comprehend its depth in a world where violence and disrespect for life seem so common? The simple prohibition of taking another human being's life hides much more than we imagine. It is not merely a physical act, but a principle that applies to every aspect of our lives, the value of human life. The sixth commandment calls us to reflect on how we treat life, not only in the literal sense, but also in relation to the thoughts, words, and actions that affect the well-being and dignity of others. Jesus, in his Sermon on the Mount, expanded the meaning of this commandment. He stated that it is not enough simply to avoid physically killing someone. Hatred, anger, and even the insults we throw at others can be ways of killing that person's spirit. When we allow these feelings to control us, we are, in a sense, killing the relationship that God desires for us to have with one another. This leads us to a deeper reflection on how we treat those around us. What happens when we act with anger, hostility, or contempt? Are we preserving life, or are we slowly destroying it with our words and actions? Furthermore, the commandment reminds us of the value of our own life. Society often pressures us to be perfect, to succeed, to meet certain standards. But God teaches us that our life is valuable in itself, not because of our achievements or status. In a world that often disregards the value of human life, especially the life of the most vulnerable, the sixth commandment calls us to act with respect and compassion for all. It is an invitation to look at others with the heart of God, who sees every human being as worthy of respect, dignity, and care. This commandment also leads us to reflect on our own responsibility for life. It is not just about avoiding the act of killing, but about creating an environment of peace, love, and respect. We need to learn to promote life, whether in our families, communities, or even at work. This includes helping others grow, supporting those who are suffering, and doing our part to create a more just and loving world. The commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," challenges us to be guardians of life, to promote human dignity in all circumstances. But, of course, life also includes our mental and emotional health. The commandment calls us to protect not only the body, but also the spirit and the mind. How do we treat ourselves? How do we care for our mental health? In a world that is so busy and full of external pressures, this commandment serves as a reminder that we must take care of our own life, seek inner peace, and live according to God's principles, who loves us deeply. Now that we understand the importance of respecting and protecting life, let us move on to the next commandment, which speaks about faithfulness and purity in relationships. "Thou shalt not commit adultery" is a commandment that at first glance may seem simple, but it holds a profound meaning, affecting many aspects of our personal and social lives. What does it really want to teach us about the importance of faithfulness, honesty, and purity? Let's explore it further in this video. "Thou shalt not commit adultery." When we hear this command, many of us immediately think of marital relationships, of the issue of fidelity in marriage. But this commandment goes far beyond a simple physical act. The seventh commandment leads us to reflect on the value of purity in all aspects of our lives, not only in romantic relationships, but also in our thoughts, desires, and actions. In a world saturated with temptations and distractions, it is easy to understand why purity is such a relevant topic. Adultery does not begin only in the physical act, but in the mind and the heart. When we nourish impure thoughts, desire what is not ours, or allow our desires to control us, we are already violating the commandment. Jesus, once again, goes beyond the simple "do not" and teaches us that sin begins in the heart. In Matthew 5:28 he says, "But I say to you that whoever looks at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart." What does this teach us? Purity begins in our intentions, thoughts, and attitudes. This commandment, then, is not limited to avoiding extramarital relations, but to protecting our hearts and minds from desires and thoughts that can lead us away from God. Adultery, in this sense, is a symbol of how we can also be unfaithful to God. When we seek satisfaction in things and people that distance us from God's love, we are committing spiritual adultery. Faithfulness to God is a reflection of our faithfulness in human relationships, and purity in the heart is fundamental to keeping this relationship with God intact. When we talk about faithfulness, we also need to think about our commitment to others. In marriage, the seventh commandment is a protection for the sacred bonds that unite two people, but it is also an invitation to cultivate loyalty, respect, and trust. It is not just about avoiding the act of adultery, but about nurturing a healthy relationship built on honesty, transparency, and true love. Purity, in marriage, as in any other relationship, requires daily effort. It demands commitment, communication, and above all, mutual respect. The commandment also teaches us to respect others in our everyday relationships. This includes how we treat the people around us. In today's world, where objectification and disrespect are often common, this commandment reminds us of the importance of seeing others with dignity without reducing them to objects of desire. Respect for purity is not limited to marriage, but extends to all our relationships, reflecting our attitude toward others. It is important to emphasize that purity does not mean a life without mistakes, but a commitment to change and the pursuit of pleasing God. No one is perfect, but each one of us is called to strive to live according to God's principles. And when we fall, God offers us forgiveness and restoration. Purity is a process of sanctification, a journey in which we are constantly being transformed into the image of Christ. Now that we understand the depth of the commandment on faithfulness and purity, we can move on to the next, which deals with the value of honesty and justice. The eighth commandment, "Thou shalt not steal," is an instruction that may seem simple at first glance, but reveals much about our integrity, our commitment to truth, and our respect for what belongs to others. How can we live honestly in a world that often tries to convince us to act otherwise? You will see this if you are still with us. Thou shalt not steal. When we think of theft, we immediately imagine a thief breaking into a house or a criminal taking something valuable from someone. But like many other commandments, the eighth goes beyond the simple physical act. This commandment speaks to honesty, respect for what belongs to others, and integrity in all our actions. Sometimes stealing does not only occur through objects, but also through words, time, or even another person's trust. Honesty is at the core of this commandment. We've all been tempted to take something that doesn't belong to us, whether it's a borrowed pen that we never return, a small discount that wasn't deserved, or even a lie told to benefit ourselves. What is being questioned here is not just the act of stealing, but our willingness to respect what belongs to others and to society as a whole. Integrity is the value that God desires us to cultivate, for He is a God of truth, and lies and deceit are completely outside of His character. Stealing does not simply mean physically taking something that belongs to someone else. Often, society teaches us to take advantage in various ways, whether in work, business transactions, or personal relationships. But what God tells us through this commandment is that nothing should be obtained in an unjust or dishonest way. In Ephesians 4:28, Paul teaches us that let him who stole steal no more, but rather let him labor, working with his hands the thing which is good, that he may have to give to him that needeth. Here, the emphasis is not just on not stealing, but on seeking honest alternatives to live and prosper. This commandment also leads us to reflect on the value of work and personal effort. When we obtain things easily, without effort or honesty, we are denying the value of hard work and human dignity. Wealth obtained illicitly never brings true peace, for there is always a price to pay, whether in regret, loss of trust, or often God's condemnation. Honest work, on the other hand, brings satisfaction and is a way of honoring God. But theft does not only occur in financial transactions. How often do we steal someone's peace by spreading gossip? How many times have we stolen trust by breaking promises? Dishonesty goes far beyond stealing material objects. It manifests in our daily attitudes, in how we treat others, and in how we choose to live our lives. God calls us to be people of character, to live justly and honestly in all areas of our lives. And of course, God's justice is also essential when it comes to the eighth commandment. Living honestly also means ensuring that others are treated justly. Often, society ends up accepting dishonest practices as normal, such as tax evasion or exploiting the most vulnerable. But God calls us to act with fairness, always seeking to do what is right, even when no one is watching. It is easy to fall into the temptation of taking what is not ours, especially when we see so many people around us acting dishonestly and gaining benefits. But the commandment reminds us that true blessings come from the Lord, and that by living honestly and justly, we are following the example of Christ, who always acted with integrity and respect for others. Honesty is not just a rule to make us good in the eyes of others. It is a reflection of God's character in our lives. Now that we understand the importance of honesty and respect for what belongs to others, it's time to move on to the next commandment. The ninth commandment teaches us the importance of truth and justice in our words. "Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor" is a call for us to be truthful people who are careful with what we say and act justly, without harming others with lies or slander. In this video, we will explore what it means to be truthful in all that we speak and how that impacts our lives. The 9th commandment says, "Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor." When God commands us not to lie, He is not only asking us not to speak false words, He is instructing us to live according to the truth in all areas of our lives, especially in our interactions with others. Lying or distorting the truth can harm people, destroy relationships, and even dishonor God. When we speak the truth, we show God's character through our words and actions. Truth is a fundamental principle for living as Christians. Jesus tells us in John 8:32, "And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." The truth has the power to set us free as it brings us peace, helps us live in harmony with one another, and keeps our integrity intact. False testimony, on the other hand, destroys trust and opens doors for misunderstandings, divisions, and conflicts. However, this commandment is not limited to direct lying. How many times are we tempted to embellish a story, exaggerating or distorting the facts for our advantage, or perhaps omitting details that could change the perception of a situation? Sometimes the lie is not something we say, but what we choose not to say. God calls us to be complete in our honesty, even when the truth is difficult or inconvenient. The 10th commandment, which complements the 9th, warns us, "Thou shalt not covet." This commandment is perhaps the most challenging, as it speaks directly to our inner desires, our attitude toward what others have. Coveting is not just the desire for something material, but envy and constant comparison with the lives of others. When we allow ourselves to be consumed by this desire, we are, in fact, saying that we do not trust God to provide what we need. And this can lead us to make mistakes, harm others, or even lose focus on the blessings God has already placed in our lives. Coveting is often fueled by a culture that values materialism and status. But God calls us to a life of contentment, where we learn to appreciate what we have and trust that He, in His wisdom, gives us everything we need. The 10th commandment teaches us to be grateful, to celebrate the blessings we already have, rather than desiring what belongs to others. When we are able to live free from coveting, we experience true peace and contentment. Now that we have explored all 10 commandments, we can see that these principles are not just ancient rules to follow. They are eternal truths that shape our character, protect our relationships, and help us live in a way that honors God. Each commandment reveals God's heart for His people, and by obeying them, we align our lives with His will and experience true freedom. These commandments challenge us to live in a way that reflects God's character in all our actions, words, and thoughts. And as we have seen, the truths contained in them are timeless, applicable to every aspect of our lives. But the real question is, are we ready to live these principles genuinely? Are we willing to let God's truth transform us from the inside out? If you have been touched by these reflections and wish to learn more about how God's commandments can transform your life, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it with your friends. Leave a comment about what you have learned and which commandment has touched your heart the most. Let's continue this journey of discovery and transformation together. Thank you for following along, and remember, living according to God's commandments is living a life full of purpose, peace, and blessings. Until the next video.